Filming.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. We're good to go. And I have my notes on here so that I'm not awkwardly like looking at my computer screen at the same time. How was your afternoon?
It went pretty well. Yeah. I introduced the guided reading rotations to the Wildcats and also like which group they're supposed to be in,
Cool.
and they were able to follow it for the most part.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we're ready to roll on Monday.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Anything else we need to square away? I know I need to get you the plans
Right.
for the uncommon levels. I will do that. Ideally by end of day tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll get you soft copies. Whenever you get the chance to put in the levels, then I will know which plans to pull.
Sweet.
We'll do that.
Cool.
That'd be great. Cool. Well, let's jump in. Do you have a note-taking sheet? There are more in the office, and I need to grab some.
I might
Oh, wow.
need,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna get some. Alright, so what do you feel like is going wrong? Is that the wrong one? That's the wrong one.
I think so, yeah. It's something on core characteristics.
Man! Fail. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. I love giving you a haircut. It's great. It's like you got her. It's like, it's great. Correct. Alright.
I think my internalization of the lesson is going well for like read aloud and reading comprehension.
Awesome.
I'm just like making notes like on the text to see where I should stop, what questions to ask. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that part.
That's great. How do you think that is translating in class?
It makes it easier for my students to like, it keeps their engagement up and also makes it like more clear what I want them to answer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it seems like you're thinking a lot more about like their answers rather than what to ask. And like the way that I can tell that is like you are emphasizing key points like in a really natural flow kind of way. You're prompting more, and it seems like you're just like able to focus on those things rather than like what's next in the plan. So I would totally agree with that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You can write it down. Cool. What we'll do is jump in and watch a video, and then we can pull out additional strengths from there, and then go into focus areas too. I don't have it on my computer, but that's okay because it's recording. So anyway, so
Is that on your phone?
No, it just had,
Oh.
I took the case off because it
It
was
looks
pulling out. Maybe I should leave it out of my case. We'll just watch a second of this one. This is just you setting them up with the question, and then turn and talk. But we'll focus more on their answer.
When I say turn to your partner, you're going to turn to your partner. And when I say talk, you're going to discuss Julian's motivation. Turn to your partner. The person with the shorter hair will talk first. Talk.
That pointing. Okay, so that's you setting them up. And then we'll watch the discussion that follows with a specific eye towards, anything in general that you're doing well, but your goal around using why do you think that when an answer is limited. And then also looking forward to like our focuses coming out of PD around, and which we sort of previewed before break, like rounding up, responding to error, and finally I think we'll see your prior goal, which we sort of checked off the list around like key point repetition.
Julian's motivation. What is Julian's motivation in the story, Miriam? He wants to grow. What makes you think that, Miriam? What makes you think that, Kimberly? What in the story makes you think that? Olivia, can you build on the answer? Yeah, Kimberly, what is Julian's motivation? Right. His motivation is he wants to grow the same time as the tree. So,
Okay, so let's start with what do you think you did well in that video? Because there are a number of things.
I liked how I went back to Kimberly to
Mhm.
make sure that she understood the answer.
Yeah, totally agree.
And just giving Kimberly time to like formulate, give her a chance to at least answer the question.
I would agree with that. I also think just your use of what makes you think that to begin with
Oh yeah.
is a huge leap from before, where I think you would have taken Miriam's answer, which was, you know, limited but correct, and been like, yeah, and added on the evidence yourself. So huge props for making that prompt come alive. That's awesome. And I agree, the no opt-out, going back to Kimberly, is huge. Do you want to write this down too?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And was the other one no opt out, and also
Using what makes you think
yeah.
that. And to stay on that point for a second, I think you did that every single time. I was like, they gave a limited answer in that observation, which is awesome. And they seemed like there were not that many hands, right, when you asked what makes you think that, which tells me that that's exactly what you need to be pushing on, but also that they're not quite used to it yet, in the sense that they're not prepared with an answer with evidence. So I want to see us continue to work on that and get to a place where, like, you say what makes you think that, every single hand is in the air. Which is also why I think in the moment, did I have you do it again? No, I can't remember. Let's start with another teacher. That's terrible. Teacher. I think that was another teacher. Where I said, like, stop, read it again, everyone listen this time. Or was that?
I think that was.
Okay, that was
yeah.
okay. I was like, there's so many people working on similar things. So normally we wouldn't always give them that out, right? Like, oh, no one knows. Okay, we're gonna do it again, because that basically makes it so they don't have to do it the first time. But I think, like, holding them accountable, continuing to hold them accountable by always asking what makes you think that, and them knowing ahead of time that that's coming, will help them think in that way to begin with. Which is all just to say, let's continue the focus on using that prompt. And then we'll see this through, and then there's something else I want to point out, but if you continue using that prompt consistently, what do you expect to see differently from them?
I think they'll be able to answer, like, the critical thinking questions, and definitely see, like, more hands go up, and hoping to, like, have them cite evidence from text.
Exactly.
And make it, like, more of, like, have it come more naturally than having to ask them to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So let's do this, because that's the vision. I think right now a continued focus on the teacher action side of things, like you using the prompt, makes sense. Once we see that you're using it consistently, then we'll flip that and measure like how many hands are going up in response to that, how prepared are they with an answer to that. But for now, since we like just started this goal, we'll focus on your actions of using the prompt. And I believe the goal, I left my goal notes in the other room, but I think it was just like, was it every time, 100% of the time or 80% of the time? I can't remember, that there's a limited answer. You respond with that prompt.
I feel like it's like 80.
Yeah, I think that's what we said too. So what I can do is track more specifically, like, oh, limited answer, did the prompt follow? So we can get data and say like, yes, we're done with this, or no, we're not.
Okay.
So continued goal, 80% of the time that there's limited answer, giving that prompt. And how clear do you feel? I mean, based on these videos, it seems clear, but I want to definitely give you the opportunity if you're unsure. How clear do you feel on what is like a limited answer versus a complete answer? Because if you don't know, you're not going to know when to use the prompting.
Right. I feel like a limited answer would be one at the surface level where it doesn't really provide evidence. They can give you the answer, but there's no reason behind it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think pushing on evidence from the text and, if needed, schema, like if it is an inferential question, right? Because like, what makes you think that? It might not just be the text, it could also be evidence from their schema as well. But I think evidence from the text takes the primary sort of focus. Yeah, that sounds good. And based on the video evidence, it seems like you've got a clear sense of when to use it, so that's great. So next question. What do you think Kimberly walked away with from that little section? Like, what does she now understand? Because you went back to her, which is great.
Right. She now understands that like the difference between a limited answer and maybe also one that's supported by evidence, and that she can't get away with like not responding. Like she's held accountable. For her answer.
So I would definitely agree with the accountability part. Like she knows like she needs to listen to what her peers say because you're going to come back to her. In terms of her knowing the difference between a limited answer and a full answer, what like evidence do we have to support that she knows that now? Or actually,
I think just seeing the difference between Mary Ann's answer and then asking her to build on it, and like, having Olivia model that for her, and then going back to her to have her like say it all together.
So I would say, I'm going to flip the question a little bit. So what is she able to provide in her answer at the end? Like, what does she share?
The motivation. So like understanding like the skill or the key points.
Right. Well, she doesn't share the key points or the skill, right? She shares.
Can I go back to her?
Yeah.
Motivation. Yeah, Kimberly, what is Julian's motivation? Right. His motivation is he wants to grow at the same time.
So what does she say there for sure?
That Julian's motivation is that he wants to grow at the same time. That's true.
Yeah. So she's walking away knowing what Julian's motivation was in this particular text. Is she walking away knowing how to find motivation?
So maybe I should have like reminded like motivation is what the character wants, and then we can focus on like these things in order to find the motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just repeated the answer, but
Exactly.
she never really. I don't think her skill is there. Like she doesn't know how to do it on her own.
Exactly.
I would ask her that question again.
Exactly. That is exactly the takeaway that I had. So she knows the answer to that question, which is going to help her comprehension of that text. But exactly as you said, like, will she be able to do that independently coming off of that? Probably not. So I also think you're spot on with making reference to the key points. like in this process, right? So what you did here, you asked Miriam, she gave a limited answer. You gave the correct prompt, went to Kimberly, which is also good, like, because she, you know, you weren't just calling on students who were going to get it right. But when Kimberly didn't get it, you went to Olivia, who gave the right answer. Kimberly repeated. At no point there did you teach how to arrive at that right answer.
Okay.
So I've seen your key point repetition be really, really strong in terms of, like, before the question, after the question. Now it's time to sort of marry it with responding to error, right? So how do you, like, leverage the key points that you have when you get a blank stare from a student like that? Because what you did was repeated the question to a different student rather than breaking down the question at hand, which you know how to do using the key points. So let's kind of think about how to generalize this skill. Let's say for any question you ask, what makes you think that? Get a, you know, blank stare. What do you do then? Besides, or I should say, instead of going to another student who can answer the question.
So what makes you think that? So what evidence can you find in the text? Like what event that might help you identify what the character wants?
Mm-hmm. So I like two things in what you just said. The first one is that you restated that question in a different way. So you said, like, essentially what you said is, like, when I ask you what makes you think that, I'm asking for evidence from the text, right? Mm-hmm. Some kids might not make that leap. So I think that's great. Let's write that down. We're sort of going to have a series of prompts. So if you say what makes you think that and you get a wrong answer or you get nothing, prompt 1, what evidence do we have from the text? And then I like the second part of what you said, which is, remember what you said? You said, what evidence do we have from the text that
can support the character's motivation.
Yep, and I think you might have said, like, what the character wants.
Right.
So step 2 is, okay, what evidence do we have? And then you define what it is you're looking for, right? So you go to the what key point.
So what evidence do we have to support the motivation?
Mm-hmm. And if we think about broadening these, because the question might not always be motivation, although it often will be since that's what you guys are focused on, it would be, you know, what evidence do we have to support, you know, insert skill here. And so doing that reminds her of, like, okay, what are we focused on? And then you can take it a step further by saying, like, what is motivation again? Okay. Or what is, you know, blank skill again? You know, and then perhaps they're able to get evidence now that they remember what it is they're looking for. But we can also imagine a kid who still isn't going to get it, right? So let's say they understand what motivation is, they understand they're supposed to find evidence in the text, but they still don't know. Where do we go from there?
I might use schema then, like, or direct them.
So you're on the right track. So far you've given the what key points, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're looking for definition, we need evidence. What you haven't given yet is the how.
Right.
So what's the how here?
How do we find the motivation?
Yeah, exactly. What do we look for?
We look for what the character wants.
Yes, but based on their motivation, or based on actions. There you go. And I'd also say thoughts and words or dialogue. So when you get down to this level, if the student was listening at all, they should be able to tell you what the character said or did or thought, right? Because that will be explicitly stated in the text. So then that student can be successful, and then you have to build back up, right? So, okay, if the character thought that, what does that mean they wanted? Or if the character did that, what does it mean they wanted? And you build all the way back up to the initial question. What was the motivation? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the same process you would use. What we did right now is specific to finding evidence, right? But it's the same process you might use if you just ask the question to begin with and no one gives you the right answer. Going back to like, okay, let me repeat the question maybe in a different way. They don't get it. Let me give you the what key points. You don't get it. Let me give you the how key points. Okay, now you get it. Fundamentally, like, what does it say in the book? Someone's going to be able to give you that, right? And then you build it back up. And so if Kimberly is able to go through this thought process, she's going to be a lot closer to understanding how to arrive at the answer rather than only knowing the answer.
Okay.
So let's think about a specific goal for that, and then we will practice.
Sure.
So far we've got the continued goal of, like, when given a limited answer, 8% of the time, respond with what makes you think that. What might a goal be going from there?
So going back to like the prompting, like how often to use it.
So what's tricky here is we're talking about after the initial prompt, right? So like that's goal number 1 is like how often you just use the what makes you think that prompt, period. We set the goal of 80%. What we're talking about now is what to do if you don't get the right answer with that first prompt. So I would frame our goal around like if still not given an answer after using the prompt, then you will, we can kind of summarize all this.
Go into like the what key points, and then if the student still does not get the answer, we move into the how key points.
Perfect. And I would say, like, I don't want to get too specific, like, you don't just continue that process all with the one student, right? Especially if it's going to take a long time and the rest are going to tune out, but making sure that that particular student is still engaged in that process so that they are coming out of it with their renewed understanding. But I would agree with you. So I would say, to summarize what you said, like when given an incorrect answer after using what makes you think that, you will use questioning that refers, well, we can even just say like to the what or how key points. And I think that will help you. I think there was a moment today where I can't remember exactly what it was, but like a kid gave a wrong answer, and I saw you kind of go like, okay, and it seemed to me, at least from the outside, that you were like, oh, like, where do I go from here? You know, like that kid's not getting it, and so knowing like, okay, back to those key points is what's gonna push past that. So do you have your computer? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If you want to pull up a lesson plan, ideally for Monday.
Sure.
Then we can look at some questions together and practice. Good.
Sweet. Traits. This is from. This is on the Frog Story.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's been a minute. Oh, Who Wants to Fly?
Yeah, who wants that?
That's right.
Tries to fly.
That's right. Okay. So let's. It doesn't really matter which one we do. We can do that. How does Frank feel? What's the exemplar?
Frank feels disappointed because the other frogs and his parents both do not think he can fly. They told him that flying is a bird thing, and because he is a frog, he will not be able to fly.
Okay, perfect. So let's practice with that. I will give you the correct answer for the feeling, but not go all the way there. Prompt me, and then I'll give you the wrong answer in terms of evidence, and we can practice going back to the key points.
Okay.
All right. So.
Gabby, how does Frank feel?
I think Frank is disappointed.
What makes you think that?
Because in the picture he's sad.
He is sad. So remember, in order to figure out character feeling, we have to think about the character's actions, thoughts, and words. So let's look for evidence in the text that might show us how Frank feels based on Frank's actions, thoughts, and words.
I see that Frank, he thinks, or it says he thinks that his mom is wrong because she says only birds can fly.
Yeah, Gabby, would that be a character's actions, thoughts, or words?
Thoughts.
That would be character thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, that's character's thoughts. And so I'm going to underline my evidence, fingers up, and let's underline it together because we cite evidence as good readers. All right, let's write that down. There we go. You did it.
Nice job. That was perfect. Yeah, I really like the way that you transitioned to the key points. It made a lot of sense. You didn't waste any time like explaining why my answer was wrong or anything like that. It was just like, okay, let's remember what kind of evidence we're looking for. That was really good. The one place I would push is before you write down the final answer, put it back together, right? So what I just did was find the evidence, but I said the feeling of disappointment way back when, so then let's rejoin it. Okay, so what was his feeling again? Include your evidence. Oh, he was disappointed, and I know because. And that is really going to push me to see the difference, as you were saying before, between a limited answer and a full answer. So let's do it one more time.
Okay. All right. Gabby, how does Frank feel?
Frank feels disappointed.
What makes you think that?
I think that because he's frowning in the picture.
So remember, when we look at character feelings, we have to focus on characters' actions, thoughts, and words. So let's go back in the text to find some characters' actions, thoughts, and words that might tell us how Frank feels. Okay, Gabby, go ahead.
It says that he thinks his mom is wrong because she says flying is for birds.
Good. So, Gabby, would that be Frank's character actions, thoughts, or words?
That would be his thoughts.
That would be his thoughts. Very good. So, finger up. Let's underline our evidence. And so, Gabby, how does Frank feel again?
He feels disappointed because it says that he thought his mom was wrong because she said flying is for birds.
Right. So we said that Frank feels disappointed because his mom said that flying is just for birds. And that is how Frank feels in the text. So let's write that in. Good
Perfect.
job.
That was great. Yeah, that was really great. And now I come away from that knowing what kind of evidence I'm looking for. What does a complete answer look like?
Cool.
So yeah, that's perfect. Let's do, are there one more? Are there any with different, like a different code or objective, different skill?
This one's on motivation.
Okay. Ooh, let's do the change one because motivation it'll still be action thoughts words. But do anything. This I hate this like ending. It's like he should.
Who was it? He really wanted to be great at things at fun because he was a frog. Why did Frank's dream change?
Right, because in the end he's just like, I just want to do frog things.
Yeah.
I'm like, you are giving up on your dream. Why? But okay, let's focus on that character change one.
I don't think we really have any. I mean, I just usually tell students to focus at the beginning and then at the end.
Yep, that's perfect. And specifically here, you're looking at like how his dream changes. So you would direct it to like, okay, what was his dream at the beginning? What evidence do you have for that? Middle and end. But I like where your head's up because if you were to not have key points for something, then that's when this process becomes really hard, right? Like you can't refer back to key points if you don't have any. So that's a good way to be thinking. And if you find yourself crafting questions you don't have key points for, craft them.
Right.
And flag that for yourself because that way you'll have something to rely on in the event that kids give you wrong answers. But let's try it out.
Okay. Why did Frank's dream change?
His dream changed because he wants to do frog things.
He wants to do frog things. So, Gabby, let's remind ourselves, what was Frank's dream at the beginning of the story?
At the beginning of the story, he wanted to fly.
He wanted to fly. And what is his dream towards the end of the story?
At the end, he wants to do frog things.
He wants to do frog things. So, let's compare the two. How did he change from the beginning, and how does his dream change at the end?
At the beginning, he wants to fly, and at the end, he wants to do frog things.
Okay. And then, I don't know.
So that prompt for evidence.
Okay, and what evidence do we have in the text that tells us he wants to do frog things?
I don't know.
Okay, let's look back at the text. And with that, actions, back to actions or thoughts. Okay, or words. Okay, so what actions, thoughts, or words can we look at that might show us why his dream changed?
And specifically, you were like, what shows us he wants to do frog things, right, at the end? Or I guess either you would focus that in on either the beginning or the end. So what shows us that he wanted to do, that he wanted to fly at the beginning? What actions, thoughts, or words show us that?
Okay.
Find that.
What actions, thoughts, or words that show us he wants to fly at the beginning of the story?
It says he wants to fly. He says he wants to fly.
He says he wants to fly, and would that be actions, thoughts, or words?
Words.
Words. Very good. And then prompt back to ending.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, what actions, thoughts, or words at the end of the story that shows us his dream changed?
He says, I just want to do frog things.
I just want to do frog things. And would that be actions, thoughts, or words?
Words.
Words. So, Gabby, bringing it all back together, why did Frank's dream change?
His dream changed because at the beginning he wanted to fly because it says, he said, I want to fly. And then at the end he wants to do frog things and he says, I want to do frog things.
Very good, Gabby. So we just answered the question, why did Frank's dream change? And we focused on characters' words to show us how his dream changed.
Perfect. That was great.
Yeah.
Nice job. How does it feel?
It feels good. Yeah. Just
cool.
I think it really clarifies things for both me and the students.
Good. Awesome. I agree. I think it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, that was really solid.
Cool.
Come a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
It's exciting. From just what are key points to how to refer back to them to deal with errors. So that's awesome. Any questions? What questions do you have about this, if any?
I'm definitely going to go over the questions, make sure I have key points for all of them, and also note what we talked about for this one. Why did Frank's dream change? Because I'm going to include that in my notes so that it'll be helpful for me when I teach the lesson.
Sounds great. Awesome. Let's just repeat back to me. What are the goals?
my goal is to continue with like ask students what makes you think that, and if they don't give a response, I am going to push for the what key points and then to the how key points if they're still unable to answer, and to really just break down the questions, cite for evidence, referring back to like things like character, actions, often words, to like break it down for them.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Cool.
Good to go for next week?
Yep.
Sweet.
Excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think this will just continue to like push on your kids' thinking and their accountability for having to think. So yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Trying to think if I had anything else for us to hit on. I don't think so. How are our fun friends?
Oh, yeah, speaking of our fun friends, Josh continues to struggle in class.
Okay.
Today he didn't get much work done. Like just noises here and there, and focus was so off.
Okay.
With Rayleigh, I have noticed some improvements in his behavior, and his therapist actually emailed me